I don't think people quite understand that whether you choose to invoke God or you choose to deny God and instead invoke the laws of physics, the things that are going to happen in and to our reality are the same in both cases. What I mean is what's going to happen is going to happen. And on the classical level, I will invoke determinism. If you know where everything started and what speed and direction it's moving, you can tell where everything is going to end up. But what if bodies in motion interfere with one another and change each other's courses? Well, this is expected. And according to mainstream science, which devolves everything back to zero, whether it happened that way exactly or not, that's how they describe it. The tiniest stuff interacted with the tiniest stuff under the laws of physics, be it classical or quantum. It's how the smallest building blocks turned into bigger building blocks, time favoring stability and complexity. The building blocks just keep getting bigger. As you go from particles that come together as atoms, atoms that come together to become molecules, molecules come together to be stuff, stuff comes together to be planets and solar systems and galaxies. Stuff? Dust, whatever. And though we are still learning about all this and correcting our theories as we go, as new data is observed and measured, we've observed quite a bit about the forces that govern our reality. So that on the classical scale, we can tell you when the next 10,000 years of solar eclipses are gonna be, and where, upon the face of the Earth, their shadow will fall. Except some interstellar object that we didn't know about zooms in and hits the moon, in which case, all bets are off. So we do allow for data that we don't know about yet. But if there's no unknown about interaction headed our way, we can tell you when and where they're gonna be, as well as when and where they were for the past 10,000 years. Now, even if this is just a theorized mathematical equation, the life cycle of a star, or our sun, you can see that it is born, it grows up, it gets old, and it dies, only to be born again as a different kind of star than it started as. A much more powerful, much more longer lasting, immortal star. Death was not the end of this star. It was merely a transformative event whereby the star could be born again as a much more stable thing than it started as. Even if all we can observe is stars in these different phases, the time it takes for a star to turn into the sun being much too long for humans to just witness happening. The time it takes for a red giant to become so unstable that it wipes out the entire solar system is on units of measure several times larger than that of human lifespans. So we can only observe the different phases of stars in the sky and then deduce that this is what's happening up there. But you can see, even if just symbolically or metaphorically, picture this if you will. Spring, summer, fall, and winter, ye must be born again. We all know that the new growth, that things get bigger, environments become more complex if they are left to their natural order. An example of this would be like you take an invasive species such as kudzu. Well, the first year that you plant it, there's just a little bit of it. But 3 years later, there's far too much of it because that organism spreads year after year after year. Doesn't stay the same size. That life form gets bigger, if you will, even if we're just talking about its progeny. So too does the death of this symbolic winter bring the next phase of growth for the star. And this is all just natural by the laws of physics, no wee-woo wee-wah required. Those intellectuals who deny God's existence entirely tend to agree on the life cycle of a star. Unless some sort of collision interrupts all this right here, or this star gets too close to a black hole or some such, it's expected to turn into a white dwarf after planetary nebula. In the exact same way that after a sperm dies in the egg, 9 months later, a human is born and displays the same exact pattern as the life cycle of a star. Birth, growth, instability or decay, followed by death. What happens after spring, summer, fall, and winter? Is that just the end? Nope, it was all for a purpose, according to the laws of physics. The same laws that dictate the life cycle of a star dictate the 4 seasons upon the face of the Earth, even if we're just talking about the angle at which it's spinning. Coincidentally, provides a process here that ends every year in the death of winter, but blooms every year even bigger in spring. Is it a coincidence that that same exact pattern displayed as a human life cycle and the life cycle of a star can be seen upon the face of the moon every 28 days? We get that same birth, growth, decline, and death? And then what happens? birth, growth, decline, death, then what happened? We're just talking about the way the light shines on the face of the moon here in science. But by the laws of physics, it displays the exact same pattern as spring, summer, fall, and winter. Spring, summer, fall, and winter. Every 28 days rather than every year. And here's a strange coincidence that's merely just the laws of physics. The 8 phases of the moon, a 28-day period, mimics a 24-hour period. Look, the sun rises, then it sets, then it rises, then it sets. Coincidentally enough, this also mimics your everyday. You wake up, you go to work, you come home, you go to bed. Being that your relationship with the sun dictates every bit of that behavior naturally. Oh, you work second or third shift? I suggest you're using unnatural lighting to accomplish that, aren't you? Interrupting nature's cycle to get that done, right? Without electricity, you're gonna have a hard time doing that. Without us altering our environment and bending nature to our will, which is an excellent segue into quantum physics, is not quite deterministic like classical physics. How do you explain that, Ryan? I'm no expert, so I will ask, does the Schrödinger equation evolve naturally and in order, or doesn't it? Now, while the quantum world seems to be highly uncertain, probabilistic, you can't say much about where something is on that level. You can say a lot about where it's likely to be. But if you know the quantum state, the wave function, you can use Schrödinger's equation to tell you exactly how the wave function will evolve, naturally and in order. And though it seems unrelated, I will add here that free will does not exist anywhere on the earth that we can tell. Everything seems to have some sort of volition, though. A choice to be made in every situation, even if you can't control the situations, which are on a classical level rather deterministic. Even if on the quantum level, they're all probabilistic. What's likely to happen here based on what? I suggest we don't have a big enough data set on that level to show the determinism that Schrödinger's equation seems to apply to me anyway, even if I'm just a layman. How does something evolve naturally and in order if there's not order? There is. Now this is the accepted mainstream quantum mechanics I'm about to describe to you. Every quantum particle that makes up an atom is merely the disturbance of a quantum energy field. For instance, the Higgs boson particle is the disturbance, or the ripple, or the agitation of the Higgs field, so that the particles themselves are little wiggly bits of energy fields. Photons do not interact with the Higgs field, and so they have no mass, and so they experience no time. The Higgs field doesn't act exactly like water. How could it? Water exists because of the Higgs field, giving electrons their mass. Otherwise, water couldn't exist because atoms couldn't exist if electrons had no mass. It's not water, it's an energy field. And it only limits or restrains accelerated motion, which increases a particle's inertia and gives it its mass. The more it interacts, the more mass it gets. The less it interacts, the less mass it gets. Photons don't interact at all, and so they get no mass. And so they are not matter. Let me try to sum this up for you. And whether you believe in God or not, I'm just talking about the laws of physics, of which there are levels. Your reality is observably both deterministic and non-deterministic. How so? Well, so long as you stay on the path that you're on and refuse to change, you know the outcome. People can come along and influence you to change your course and so change your outcome. It's not determined, is it? You can change it by making better decisions rather than repeating the same old ones, of which there are many to make every day. It's typically bigger people that influence smaller people, and I'm talking about like clout or reputation. That's why it's called looking up to someone. How'd you get up there? Well, let me tell you, a good mentor does. They'll typically say, I obeyed the laws, and then tell you what the laws are. And it's just the laws of physics on this level of social interaction and daily decisions. Just like in space, if you're the little guy and you interact with the big guy, he's going to influence you. But just like in space, you can grow to be a bigger guy. Just like with kudzu, you can grow to be a bigger guy and have more influence over the forest. Little bitty acorns turn into great big oak trees by observing the same laws on their level. Now Jesus said, except a seed falls into the ground and dies, it abides alone, but if it dies, it brings forth much fruit, and this is true of sperm. And by the same laws on the next level up, I say it's true by men as well, that just like there is an observable level above sperm and an observable level after star, what Jesus said is observably true on all levels. The end.